Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for coming. It's my great pleasure today to introduce Chris Smith. I have to say, Chris is a bit different today because he is the only male or guy to talk. All our other speakers today have been female, so he's a little bit different. And he is also different because I think most of our speakers have had a true photographic, like gone through uni and studied photography, or Chris hasn't. In fact, when I look to say, what am I going to say about Chris, it's pretty hard to find anything. So this can be very interesting, except I did check his website. He's got some beautiful, beautiful images, fantastic site and beautiful images. And I did read this here, which I'll quote. Through his own personal journey and challenges, Chris has learnt that images are so important to us. They aren't just dots on, let's start that one again. They aren't just dots of ink on paper or pixels on a screen. They capture a moment in time that you can hold on forever. So I think that's pretty important. That's what photography is all about. And we have to thank Olympus. Olympus is sponsoring Chris to be here today, so thank you, Olympus. And welcome, Chris.
You're awesome. Okay, hello, welcome. Thank you. Firstly, thanks to Michaels and Olympus for the opportunity. So this is way bigger than what I thought it was going to be. When Olympus first said, "Oh, would you like to do a talk at Michaels?" Like, yeah, no problems. That'll be fine. I've never done anything like this before, so I'm like, yeah, that's cool, no problems, we can do that. And then they sent me another email and was like, okay, so it's a 45-minute presentation and possibly over 100 people, and I'm like, oh my God. So they said, here's a link, you can go and check out all the previous speakers. And I'm like, okay, check it out. And that was like using Google to diagnose an illness. The more I read, I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. But no, super excited, and thank you for being here. It's an awesome day outside, so glad that you're all in the dark with me. So, connecting with portraits. I'll start off with just a little bit about sort of myself. So, this is one of my favourite images. Yes, that's me, so I hope you're not offended by that. And I have 2 kids, I'm married, I don't shoot full-time, I shoot part-time. I've had no real formal training as such, so the best way to learn something is just to go out there and do it as much as you can. So I started shooting. I've always loved photography. Always had used it as a hobby for me. So I've been doing it for years and years. But recently, probably the last sort of three years, I've become a lot more serious with it. So I started off doing long exposure landscape type work and still love that, but then the kids came along, so it kind of made getting out and about a little bit harder. So I found that through portraits I could still use it as a creative outlet without having to be in different locations all the time. And the reason I put this image up is there's a few things about it. So I don't know if anyone knows where this is. So this is Skogafoss, which is in Iceland. So it's pretty much the most popular waterfall in Iceland. And I was there with a mate, and we were like, we love the shots from it. It's an amazing place. You see them everywhere. But we're like, how can we, what can we do? How can we make it different? What we kind of think outside the box. So yeah, we thought it would be a great idea to take our clothes off and take some photos. And bearing in mind, there would have been 100+ tourists behind us just taking photos at the same time. So we're in I think we would be in a few albums around the world. But the other thing about that is, I'm a big believer in without risk there's no reward. So if you think outside the box a bit, you'll reap the rewards for it. The other thing about this is that I would never ask someone I'm shooting to do something that I wouldn't physically do myself. So yeah, that's the other reason. And thirdly is that you don't know what your impact is going to be on other people. So after we did this, Dan and I, so Dan took the shot, I took some shots of Dan. There were 3 Brazilian guys there, and they saw it and went, that's a bloody brilliant idea, let's do that. So the next thing we knew, there was 3 naked Brazilian guys standing out there taking photos. So yeah, so you never know how you're going to inspire someone. Yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. All right, so a little bit of what I'm going to talk about. I don't know, does anyone take portraits? Anyone work with models or do anything like that? A few? No one? Awesome, that's great. So I thought, yeah, so we're going to talk about what makes a great portrait, and bearing in mind this is from my personal point of view, so photography is so subjective. What I might love, you might hate, and vice versa. So everything I'm talking about is just from my personal opinion. We're going to talk a little bit about contacting and working with models, creating comfortable, safe shooting environments, which is one of my my big things. A bit about lighting. I get asked about lighting a lot. How and why I shoot. Inspiration, where you find it, where's it come from. A little bit on workflow and editing, and then sort of my journey with Olympus, and then a little bit of the gear talk at the end. So connections. For me, an image. What draws me into an image is something I connect with. So whether that's the mood of the shot, the lighting, the body language, the connection with the eyes. There's so much that goes into making a great portrait. Like I said, it's very subjective. So I shoot. And it's hard in this day and age because social media is massive, but I shoot for me, so I don't shoot what I think people are going to like. I shoot the stuff that I really enjoy, and if people like it, that's awesome. If they don't, that's fine. And I've been pretty lucky I've just naturally built up. A bit of I guess you'd say a following or a community. Melbourne's really awesome community-wise, so there's really good people out there, and there's also some ones that, you need to be aware of. So I'm all for making people comfortable and safe when I'm shooting. So naturally drawn to eyes, body language. I love skin, so I think using skin, but not in a objectifying sexual kind of way. So a lot of I try and, I guess you'd say that some of them are sensual, some of them probably are a bit sexy, but that's okay. And yeah, I try to take that sexual element out of it and focus more on just who the person is, and getting a bit creative with it. So the other thing that you'll probably see in a lot of my work is there's almost a vulnerability aspect to it, which is just something I connect with more than anything else. And I've just got there, I don't know if anyone knows Brené Brown, but if you're after an awesome TED Talk, Brené Brown does a really good TED Talk on vulnerability. Okay, so working with models. I'll go relatively quickly, but so if anyone's looking to work with models, starting out, wants to get into portraiture, the best thing to do would be to start shooting with friends or family, build up a bit of a portfolio with people that that you can, there's comfortable aspect to it. So try and build up a bit of a portfolio that then you can put out and people can actually see the kind of work that you do. There's no point trying to contact models or people without having any kind of portfolio to show them what they're going to get. So I just quickly put the way I started is I did exactly that. I shot with some friends, family, and then built up a bit of a portfolio. And then I went to, there's some really good online Facebook groups. I've listed a couple of them there, but you can generally put a call out for models or people just wanting to shoot. Show them your work, and you'll generally get some interest, and then from there you can just snowball. So you just keep shooting. So for the last probably 3 years, I would have, on average, I probably would shoot at least once a week, maybe twice a week. So I basically just shot as much as I could, much to my wife's displeasure, probably. So there's a couple of good Facebook groups. Instagram, I recently went to Bali for a trip, just a photo trip with my good mate Dan here. And we emailed agencies, we emailed so many talent agencies over there, but didn't get any response. So we eventually just started contacting models directly. Just through hashtags, locations. There's a myriad of ways to get in contact with people, and yeah, we basically ended up having a shoot. We were there for a week, and we shot once a day at least. So the power of the social media aspect is amazing. Again, when you're contacting them, just it's how you would want to be contacted by someone. So it's polite, respectful, honest. If you're putting, people use mood boards and reference images a lot, so, and I do that as well. So if I'm after if I want to shoot something, I'll put together a group of images that sort of represents what I'm after. And yeah, if you're going to do that, use images that identify with the work that you can produce. There's no point putting reference images of, famous, amazing photographers if that's not at the level that you're at. So use mood boards or reference images, that reference what you do. Clear communications, collaborations. A lot of people use the word TFP. I do majority of my work, started out as just collaborations. There's nothing I love more than working with someone who's after the same output. So they put their spin on the shoot as well. It's been sort of building that I'm doing sort of more and more paid work, which is great. But I always find the paid work doesn't always feel the same. Feels like there's a different reasoning behind it sometimes. So I still love shooting free with people that just want to create stuff. All right, shooting environments. Being able to set up a shoot, obviously you need a location, you need to know where you're going. There's lots of ways you can do it, but the shooting environment should always be a safe place. If you haven't got a lot of work or a lot of references that models can sort of speak to, or it's always a good idea to shoot somewhere where, like a public space, where people probably feel a little bit more comfortable, depending on what you're shooting, maybe not completely nude stuff. But yeah, so homes, I use hotels, Airbnbs, I have a studio that I work out of, and then on location as well. So that place there is the Big Drift, which is down near Wilson's Prom. I don't know if anyone's been down there, but it's an incredible place. It's one of my favourite places to shoot. So you can have some really amazing locations around Melbourne that you can go and shoot at. Generally, I'm really specific with the language that I use when I'm talking and working with models. There's simple things like just be respectful of personal space. You would never touch a model for any reason, and if you need to, you would always ask first. But I've been on shoots where I've seen stuff go on, I'm like, oh my God, that's not right, you can't do that. So yes, always be respectful. And if you want to give feedback, do it in a way that's not like objectifying the model in some way. So I always talk about, you know, that looks great, or the shape's working well, or I love the body language. Or you would never like pick out an actual part of a model's body that you would talk about. And generally stick to the concept. So if you're shooting fashion, don't then an hour into the shoot go, let's shoot some nude stuff, because it's not the way things should be done, and you have to be really careful. The Melbourne community is quite small. Everyone knows everyone, and so word gets around really quickly if you're behaving in a way that you shouldn't be with shooting. So yeah, I've always told models, if you've got any shoots coming up that you're not sure about a photographer, just message me and let me know, because I'll generally know of them, or personally them, or I'll know photographers that know them. So there's always a way to make sure that you are trying to be the best person you can be when you're shooting. There's never a reason why a photographer wouldn't allow a model to bring a friend or a guardian. So if you're ever shooting and a photographer says you can't bring someone, that's probably a fair indication that you probably shouldn't shoot. The stuff I do can sometimes be a little bit awkward if there's someone else there just watching. So I'm not saying you have to go to that extent, but they can be there. They can be in another room. They can be in the car. They can be there so that model feels safer about the situation. I shoot super relaxed and candid. I'll generally have music going. I'll always ask what their favourite bands are. The best way to make someone feel comfortable when you're shooting them for the first time is just to ask as many questions as you can. So the more people talk about themselves, the more comfortable they'll feel, just being in that space with you. And yeah, like I said, reputation is everything. So you've got to be really careful with how you shoot with people, because it gets around. Lighting. I shoot predominantly natural light. Or ambient light, so I do a little bit of studio and flash stuff. Lighting's a funny one. I always get asked about lighting, and it's because I've had no technical training, I guess. The best light's so hard to read. It's not something you can just go out and decide to do overnight. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of practice, and just trial and error of working with different light. I basically will shoot majority of my work in the afternoon, so anywhere depending on daylight savings or not, but generally like 2 to 3 hours before sunset and then half an hour after sunset. So always that really soft, beautiful light. And you don't always get days where the light's beautiful, so it might be overcast or raining, so again, that's just about using that environment to your advantage in whatever way you can. And that's the best way to learn. So yeah, that's what I would sort of advise if you want to sort of start shooting more portrait work with natural light, is just to go out there and do it as much as you can. I don't really use any light modifiers, so I don't use scrims or reflectors or anything like that. By all means, you can do, and people do. It's just another thing for me that I have to think about during a shoot that then takes away from that connection that we might have when we're shooting. So I try and minimize as many different objects or things in the shoot that can start to distract when you're shooting. I always expose for highlights. You can always bring shadows up in post, but if you blow the highlights out, they're gone forever. Try different things. Play with shadows. So I find that, like you'll see, I love playing with shadows, and shadows are another thing that you can't see straight away. So it takes time to sort of learn to see where the light's falling and how to place people in that light to sort of where you want them. So yeah, like that's some of my favorite stuff is having that creative, sort of almost artistic aspect to some of the images. I like a lot of negative space in shots, and yeah, playing with shapes and those shadows and highlights. So this is a collection of images where I shoot into the light. So also love shooting into the light, and a lot of people don't shoot into the light because it's not always that easy. The thing that I love with the Olympus system, which I'll get to a bit later, is that the live view on it, you can see exactly what you're getting straight away. So if you're shooting with another camera where you've got to, you're looking through the viewfinder and you've got to constantly chimp and check your exposure and see what's working, it takes away from that shooting environment. So yeah, the live view feeds that you can get on the cameras now are incredible, and that's how I do a lot of this. So I'll generally shoot at about chest height. So the thing I found when I moved over to the Olympus system is because they do have the live view, I rarely look through the viewfinder. Sometimes I will if it's super bright, and so I'm not shooting into the light, but it's just like really sunny, so you can't see the screen, so you have to look through the viewfinder. But majority of the time I'll shoot from my chest and I'm looking down. So sometimes people think that can sort of break the connection that you can have with the model because you're not sort of looking eye to eye, like they're looking at the camera and I'm looking at the camera, but that's just the way I work, and I found it works pretty well majority of the time. So this is direct sunlight. So yeah, with the lighting, like I said, you just go out there and explore and just take as many photos as you can, learn as much about reading light as you can. The Olympus system is amazing in that I've shot with other photographers at the same time, and what they can get in an image and what I can get are, they're chalk and cheese, they're miles apart. So yeah, it's an awesome system, shooting directly into light, direct sunlight, and this is window light. So probably some of my favorite stuff is just super candid, natural window light. These are all inside shots, and again playing with shape and mood and connection, and yeah, that's just one of the things that I love. For me, it's a release, so I get to forget about everything else that's going on with life, and I can just just create stuff with other people that love creating stuff. So yeah, so a bit of studio work. I don't use any. I use one light for studio. It's nothing fancy. Yeah, it's super basic. I try and the more basic you can keep things, the more you'll learn. If you start to try and put multiple lights in, it's just more things that you then have to think about. So I try and keep shoots as simple as possible. And yeah, these are all just one light. There's a little trick that I do as well when I'm shooting studio. So sometimes, generally at night, if you just turn all the lights off, so everything's dark, but you just use the modeling lamp, and you don't actually fire the flash, you just use the modeling lamp as almost like natural light. So you don't have to shoot at, 7, 9, 11, you can shoot at 1.2, 1.4, get a much softer image with better drop-off than shooting. The thing with studio is that when you shoot using studio flash, you'll generally have to shoot at a higher f-stop, so everything's like tack sharp, and that's probably why I don't do a huge amount of studio, because the editing takes 10 times longer to do, and I don't spend a lot of time on editing, so I try and keep things as natural. I don't change people's shape. I will clone out anything that's superficial, that's not on the model permanently, but anything that is pretty much stays, unless the model requests something to be removed. But yeah, never change people's shape. And I know there's an area and there's a market for that, but that's not the kind of thing that I enjoy doing. Okay, so how and why I shoot. So I've already sort of said that it's a creative outlet for me. I'm a big social person as well, so I love meeting new people, and yeah, have met some awesome people along the way. Coming back to the quote that Peter read out earlier, I travelled around Australia when I was 6 for 2 years. So mum and dad packed up, sold the house, bought a caravan, and we literally just drove around Australia for 2 years. And super lucky to do that. And it's funny, it was, looking back now, the camera that we used actually while we went around was actually an Olympus Trip 35 camera. So it's funny, it kind of came around full circle again. The images. So we've got a bag, like a massive bag of just 6x4s, which were all the photos from the trip. So that sort of comes back to that. It's not, you get to keep them forever, and I think that's super important. Again, along the way, what I thought was an outlet for me, which is also an outlet for the models as well, but I found that I could help them see themselves differently. So this is Beck, who's a good friend of mine, and she's also a photographer. She said something to me that stuck with me, and it has, and she said, you capture something in people that they need to see in themselves. So for me, that was super important. So I love being able to help people, and I mean predominantly females, but I think there's a lot of pressure on females in this day and age. Social media's, I have a love-hate relationship with it. I think it does some good, but it has a big negative impact as well. So especially for females, so body image, it's really hard. So I'm able to help people see themselves differently, and just start to feel better about themselves. So I've had shoots where they've wanted to shoot with me specifically for that reason. So they wanted to just feel good about themselves. They might be going through a shit patch of their life, and they just wanted to open up and just almost start fresh. So that's sort of what started out as an outlet for me, is being able to help others as well. Shoot super relaxed, candid, documentary style. I shoot a few weddings as well, but when I'm shooting portraits, I take a lot of images, like a lot. And the reason I do that is I'm after that split second, either before or after the model thinks I'm going to take the photo. So it's just that slight second where they're not necessarily thinking about having the photo taken. And I find that those like little natural moments are the things that really draw me in. So that's why I take a lot of photos, because I'll go through and I'll pick the ones that I connect with more, and I think they're the more natural, candid images. Socially Friends, it's an awesome community. If you want to start out, the best way to get better is to surround yourself with people that will bring you up. So they'll help you, they'll inspire you. That's the best way I've learned. I've hung around with people that just make you want to be better. And take all the sexual objectivity out of images. Everyone is beautiful in their own way, and there's flaws that society or socially people say are flaws, but it's those little individual aspects to people which makes them them. So I love sort of being able to focus and capture on those, capture those little things that help. Yeah, so without risk, there's no reward. And I'm not talking about massive risk. Obviously, there's little risk and massive risk. I don't know if anyone... There was an image getting around earlier in the year, and it was this photographer and model had climbed up to some stupid height, and he took a photo, and she was like balancing on the edge of the building, and he was holding her and took the photo. So that's probably a little bit extreme risk-wise. Wouldn't recommend that, but yeah, just... I get a lot of photographers asking me, I get, worried or scared, or they're afraid to contact models, but models are just people like everyone else. So just, if you don't ask, you never know. There's coming back to my little bit of work with Olympus. I'll go through it a bit later, but yeah, it's that if you don't ask, you'll never know. Inspiration. So, inspiration is a tricky one. We all get it from different aspects, from different areas of our lives. I love music, so I always shoot to music, and I'll generally edit to music. And yeah, I find that you'll see things online. I've got a folder of inspiration images that I constantly add to. So anything that I see that I love, and it could be anything in any kind of format, I'll grab it and put it into my inspiration collection. And I'll just go back, every now and then I'll go back through and just check it and see if anything kind of pops out. But yeah, it's whatever inspires you. Use that in your shoots. So if you find reference images or shoots that you love, and you want to kind of do something like that, put your spin on it. Don't try and copy something exactly. Just use that as inspiration, but then put your own spin on it. And these are just a few images of mine that I still look at and love and use for inspiration for other shoots. So a little bit about finding your style. Anyone just starting out in photography, it takes a long time to work out your style, and you'll naturally... That's a natural process that happens over time. Again, it doesn't happen overnight, but the more you do it, the more you will find your own style, what you're drawn to, and how you like things to look. So I've been doing the models and portraits for 3 years now, and I'm probably within the last 6 months, I've only really just started to find that I have now a style. So it does take a lot of time, but just keep at it. If you can look at social media and just feel like you're the worst photographer in the world, and why are you even doing this? So just keep going. I keep things natural, realistic. Like I said, I take a lot of shots. I love natural moments. There's your editing style as well. So you'll find that you'll shoot a style with people, and then there's the editing side of it, which you put your own style on as well. So I've got a bunch of presets that I just use now for basically all my images, but it took a while to get those presets to where I wanted them. So yeah, there's a lot that you can find online. So if you find anything that you like the look of, use it, but then just tweak it to where you want it to be. And a little thing about, I use Google Drive. not really Dropbox, but so much. But another one which is really good that is great for showing models or presenting the photos basically is Pixieset. That's a really nice online gallery that you can upload all the shots to. Models can go through and select their favorites, save them, and then you can see that at the back end. So you can just copy all their favorites and bring them all up in Lightroom. Okay, journey with Olympus. We're going all right for time. How are you guys going? Hot? Is that all right? Yeah. So, my journey with Olympus. I was shooting big DSLR. I'd been doing it for a few years, and just found I was going through the same motions all the time. Felt like I was doing the same thing over and over and over again. So I wanted something that was small and light that I could play around with. I could take traveling. I could, you could do whatever you want with, but just something light and fun. I ended up buying an EM5 Mark II, which is an awesome little camera, and found that it brought the fun aspect to shooting back for me. So with the flip screen, you can change angles. You get the live view, like I said. I shoot predominantly on aperture priority, and I just use the exposure compensation to work out my exposure. I started using the EM5 on some shoots and really loved the image quality that was coming out with it. So I put a little portfolio together of just the Olympus images. And I knew Olympus had their sponsored photographers, and they had them all online. You can go and check them all out. So I went online, and I really loved the camera. So I thought, I'll check them all out, and they all like way different stuff to what I do. Like beautiful imagery, but just different to what I do. So I think I might have been drunk one night, and I thought, you know what, stuff it. I'm just going to send an email off. This is what I do. I love the system. I feel I might be able to capture a market that you might not be getting a huge amount of exposure to. So sent that off, totally not expecting anything to come back at all. It was like a throwaway email. But yeah, a couple of days later, I actually got a reply. Ended up having a conference call with some of the guys in Sydney, and it just went from there. So that sort of comes back to no risk, no reward, and just put yourself out there. Ask questions. You never know what's going to come around the corner. And I still think it's bizarre. Like, even me standing up here talking to all you, I think that's bizarre, right? For me, that's really weird. Like, I'm just a small Melbourne photographer that likes to take photos. So, yeah, just go out there and just keep doing what you do, because you'll get better at it the more you do it. So yeah, just a couple of things I love about the Olympus system: the size, the weight, the quality of build. I think, so I shoot with two EM1 Mark IIs, and I'll generally have them on straps either side. The quality of these things is insane. I can do everything with this short of, I mean, even then, you can blow images up massive and print them. I can do everything with this that you could do with any other camera. So a lot of people think the Micro Four Thirds thing, you need a full frame. From my point of view, you don't. You can, with the new range of 1.2 lenses, you can do anything with these things. They're amazing. I was at the beach with Dan, and I had a whole wave go over this when I was shooting in the water, and they're fine. I think some of the other visionaries actually water them down with water out of a bottle to clean them. So yeah, crazy. I've got a range of lenses, but basically my favorite lens and what I shoot majority of my work on is the 25 1.2. That and the new 17 1.2, they're just amazing lenses. That'd be those ones. And I just wanted to let everyone know that I'll be doing a workshop here on the 11th of November So we're gonna, I don't know if you've been up to the rooftop, but the rooftop's insane and it'd be awesome for a shoot. So we're gonna get some models along, and I think there's about 15 places. So yeah, spots available. So we're gonna do a workshop. So you can get in, I think, before everyone else. Is that right? If you, SMS Olympus to that number, and we can go from there. All right, I think we've got about a minute left. Is that right?
We have got time for a couple of questions.
Okay.
Thanks very much for all that detail. I think there's a lot to take in. Fortunate thing for us, all of us, is this talk and all the talks today are going to be going on our website in the next couple of weeks. So you'll be able to, when these guys go through so much good info, and they really give it from their heart, like all those pointers and all that useful info. So to be able to go over again at your leisure is a really good thing. So thank you.
That's all right. I hope, if you can take one or two things away from today and use it in your own work, then that's awesome.
In the meantime, we've got time for 2 questions, and then we can go down to the Olympus section and ask more questions. But who's got a question? No such thing as being dumb.
When you say you have presets that you use, what does that mean?
Okay, so I mainly edit in Lightroom, and in Lightroom you can have like color presets. So from a raw image, you can put your preset on, and that'll bring up how you want the image to look.
Thank you. Now, there is, seriously, in photography, all these terms and tools and terms and things, never hesitate to say, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Because there's really no such thing as being dumb.
Nope.
I ask, what do you mean, lots and lots of times. So if I can, I've been doing this for a long time, then you can. Any more questions? Yes, thank you. Last question.
With regards to the location that you choose, obviously some of the images, it's probably a little bit sensitive and things like that. How do you control the crowd and things like that? Or how do you find a location that's private?
Yeah, sure. So I do a lot of Google Maps viewing. So I try and find locations, on Google Maps, where obviously there's not going to be a lot of people, because it can be a bit sensitive. Just find areas, locations where generally it's harder for people to get to. So if it's harder for people to get to, there's going to be less people there. So the Big Drift's probably not a great example because that gets pretty busy these days. But there's so much space there that you can use that you can find an area where you're going to be by yourself. Basically just all online. So Google Maps, hotels, check them all out online. But majority of the time I shoot at models' homes if they're comfortable with it. I find that it's their home, so they're going to be a lot more comfortable there than being somewhere else. And that's them being comfortable is the most important thing. So because it shows through in the shots completely. So never. I don't understand that there's some photographers that just, I don't know, it's like they go out of their way to try and make people uncomfortable when they shoot, and it just shows through in the images. So
Good, thanks. Very
That's all right.
refreshing. All your views, they're all fresh, and obviously very honest, so thank you very much.
No worries, thank you.
Now, if you guys want to do a workshop with Chris, SMS Olympus to that number there. Sometimes can be a bit difficult, so if that's too hard for you, don't worry, just go down to our film counter and tell them you want to organise it. So that often is much easier, particularly if you SMS it and nothing comes back and you get a bit frustrated. So just go down to our film counter. So thank you again, Chris. Put your hands together, please.
No worries.